watch those escapees. You know. So Rabbi Davis also asked me to, as if he didn't do it enough, to plug Holy Grounds. Look, just for his sake, after services, go have a cup of coffee, would you? Well, not today. We're not open today. Oh, sorry, don't have a cup of coffee today. You can go another day and have a cup of coffee, just for him. So I've been asked a number of times, you know, what I'm going to speak about on the holidays over and over. People, I don't know why that concerns you, because I never know, and until I'm up here I don't really know. I kind of prepare something, but it depends how I feel. But reality is, I sort of think of Rosh Hashanah, the way I approach Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. I think of Rosh Hashanah as kind of the communal day, a celebratory day. I think of it as an uplifting day and a positive day. And I like to think about looking at ourselves and our Jewish people and our community and our synagogue in those terms. And so I try to shape whatever I'm going to talk about on Rosh Hashanah by that. And on Yom Kippur, I think of it as more contemplative, of dealing with kind of personal kinds of issues that we may be dealing with individually. And then, of course, I also see it in the national context of dealing with Israel and dealing with the world that we confront as a Jewish people on Yom Kippur morning. So, as I spoke last night, I want to continue a little of those thoughts. And I read this year that it finally happened that someone did a study, because there have been all these happiness studies, happiness books, lots and lots of them that have been written. There are now actually whole departments at universities devoted to happiness. It's really fascinating that it exists. But they identified, through using all of these studies, they identified the happiest person living in America today. Happiest person was found. This is not an invented person, this is an actual person. I don't know how many of you read this. I'm going to name him for you and tell you where he lives. He actually was published as the happiest person in America. His name is Alvin Wong. W-O-N-G. Alvin Wong. He's Jewish. He is. He's Jewish. He lives in Honolulu. He's a member of the community there. He's not only Jewish, he's an Orthodox Jew. Keeps kosher. Alvin Wong. So, what did they do by elimination in order to get it? He happens to be 5'10". He's 69 years old. He is Chinese American and an Orthodox Jew. He's married with children and, of course, lives in Hawaii. He also owns his own business and earns over $120,000 a year. All of those are factors that make him the happiest person in America. Because, according to studies, men tend to be happier than women. Sorry. I didn't do the studies. Older people tend to be happier than middle-aged people and younger people. Asian Americans are the happiest of the ethnic groups, and traditional Jews are the happiest of religious groups. Taller men are happier than shorter men. So by looking at all of the factors, people who make more than $75,000 a year are happier than people that make less. They looked at all the factors together, and they find Alvin Wong. So they called him up. Can you imagine the call? And they told him, Mazel Tov. I don't know if they said Mazel Tov. They said, you're the happiest person in America. And he said, is this a prank call? I mean, if you were called with that, what, you know? But, you know, it seems to me the truth is that we should all feel like we are among the happiest people in the world. We all have the reasons for it. We live in an incredible time. We live in a time where we are living among the most free society that has probably ever existed. We can make complaints about all kinds of things, but anyone who comes here feels the difference between other countries in the world. We live in a world where the people of the world, the almost 7 billion people of the world, are better educated, healthier, more peaceful, better connected. According to all the studies that have been done, they live longer. They have better access to health care and cleaner water than any other generation in the entire history of the world. Not only that, in just the last 25 years, the average life expectancy in the world has gone from 64 to 68. You think about it, the average life expectancy in the world at the turn of the 20th century was somewhere around 30. It's gone from 64 to 68. Infant mortality has fallen in the last 25 years from about 70 for 100,000 people to 40. Now, it's still a number, but it's a big drop. And also, the major armed conflicts in the world have gone down from 37 to 26. So we have reasons to be happy, and yet it feels like the world is going to hell in a handbasket. Somehow we feel anxious, we feel nervous. The question is why? And I think, in my way of thinking, the big issue has to do with hope. It seems that it's kind of missing for many of us. The notion of a vision about where we're headed, a vision about what our children will find. Will they have a better world? Will they live in a better way than today? We seem to feel that we're moving down and not moving up, even though the evidence keeps showing us that virtually everything moves up over time. So how do you find a way back to that faith? Faith in ourselves, in our country, in our people, in the institutions that are a part of us. You know, modernity, the modern world we live in, is a real blessing, but it's also a curse. Now, the blessing is obvious. I already talked about technology today with the live streaming. Hi, Mom. God willing, she's watching this right now, and my kids who couldn't come in, and my nephew in Las Vegas, and maybe some of your relatives are watching this, some of our members that are away. Technology is an incredible kind of thing. There are also the health plans that we have, the ability we have to stay healthy if we use it. We have the ability to extend civil rights and freedoms to more and more people than we ever have. We have more comforts than we've ever had. But modernity also offers us a curse. And I look at it as a triad of beliefs that led us down a way toward kind of pessimism and fear. The first is materialism. Somehow we've come in as modern people to a belief, and it's part of modernity, that only things that you can touch and feel matter. That's all that really matters in this world. Money and stuff. Things. What we know, what we can feel, what we can touch. And not only that, but that has led us as well that only that which can be measured and quantified matters. And further, it got extended, this notion of materialism in a philosophic way, that there is nothing beyond what we know, meaning there's nothing holy, there's nothing sacred, there is no soul for human beings or for communities. There just is what we can measure. Now, our tradition counters all of that. Our tradition says that's nonsense. It's not what we live. It's not the way we feel. It's not the way we've experienced the world. In spite of all the pain and suffering and difficulties, we recognize that the world is more than just a material world. There is something greater, something bigger. I like the way Albert Einstein said it. Whenever I agree with Albert Einstein, I feel good. Not everything that can be counted counts. And not everything that counts can be counted. Not everything that can be counted counts. And not everything that counts can be counted. That's the way I like to live my world. We declare as Jews that everything can become sacred, holy, and that we have souls, and that humanity has a soul, and that the world has a soul, and that institutions have souls, and that cynicism has led us to this kind of negativism and fear of our world. Of course, news going on 24/7 hasn't hurt. It seems to feed that fear, but we buy it. We watch it. We tap into it in our lives. We don't have to. I think the high holidays try to drive us back toward hope. One of the major prayers that we say is Hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'Nashuva. And I would translate that, turn us, so that we can turn toward a clear vision of who we are and where we are going. And then Chadesh Aleinu, Yameinu Kekedem. Renew our days as you have renewed past generations in their days. Every generation has obstacles. Every generation has challenges. But in the past, our generations have found ways out of it, found ways back to hope. We need to do that. We have so many tools to be able to make that available. In the book of Proverbs, it says, we're going back now to the Bible, without a vision, a people will perish. And I would say without a vision, we as individuals will perish. And our nation will perish. And our synagogue will perish. It is hope, vision, that move us into the future and that let us have that view. Perhaps we can reclaim some sense of vision of our soul and belief of a better future. Maybe the holidays can help us do this. Maybe Rosh Hashanah can lift our spirits. Recently, for the umpteenth time, I saw Scent of a Woman. How many of you saw that recently? Yeah, I love that film. It's one of those films I can watch over and over. And so for those who don't remember, Charlie Sims is a student at a private boarding school and is played by Chris O'Donnell, and he's been pressured to inform on his fellow students. And this is the culminating scene, and Lieutenant Colonel Slade, who's played by Al Pacino, and who is a blind combat officer, comes in to defend this new friend of his, Charlie. And Charlie is refusing to identify the people he knows who participated in this prank. Refusing to do it. So this is what Pacino, as Colonel Slade, he says, "I don't know if Charlie's silence here today is right or wrong. I'm not a judge or jury, but I can tell you this. He won't sell anybody out to buy his future. And that, my friends, is called integrity. That's called courage. Now that's the stuff leaders should be made of. Now I've come to the crossroads in my life. I always knew what the right path was. Without exception, I knew. But I never took it. You know why? It was too damn hard. Now here's Charlie. He's come to the crossroads. He has chosen a path. It's the right path. It's a path made of principle that leads to character. Let him continue on that journey." And then within his remarks, the lieutenant says, "The only class in this act is sitting next to me. And I'm here to tell you, this boy's soul is intact. It's non-negotiable." So that's the question. How's your soul this year? Intact? Non-negotiable? How you doing this year? That's what I asked myself. That's what I looked at this year, and you know, I found some cracks. My soul didn't feel like it was where it needed to be, but you know, how do you break the patterns that are a part of your life every day? How do you stop what you're doing and change direction and get a different perspective without a major crisis? And thank God that didn't happen. How do you do that if you really believe you need to make a change? So I'm going to tell you what I did. It's a little trivial. Some of you may even think it's strange. Some of you have already seen what I did. I have a walk station in my office. Now, I want to tell you what a walk station is. A walk station is a treadmill with a desk over it, and my computer and my phone are on that desk, on the treadmill. And I walk while I'm doing my email and my phone every day. Does that sound crazy? Some people think so. Now, the question is, why did I do this? And I would say part of it is aging. Part of it is sitting a lot. My back was hurting more. Part of it is expanding waistline issues and health issues. But you know, there was this other aspect. I needed to get a new perspective. I needed to see things differently. And I have to say that standing and walking while I'm at work thinking about the things that go on at Temple and in people's lives and in my life, gives me a real sense of elation, a different perspective, a rethinking of the things I do every day. I see them a little bit differently. I even held some meetings walking on the treadmill. A little disconcerting for the staff, but they seem to have gotten used to it a little bit. But it's helped me a little bit reframe kind of the things in my life and try to get my soul a little more intact. And again, Albert Einstein and I agree. Einstein says life is like riding a bicycle. To keep your balance, you must keep moving. Okay, it's not a bicycle, it's a treadmill, but still, that notion of keeping moving and seeing things a little different was important to me. So it's a good question to ask ourselves this year. Is our soul intact? Let me give you a few people that I think have souls intact. I don't know how many of you read about Naama Shafir from the University of Toledo's basketball team. University of Toledo's basketball team. They won the women's NIT championship game. She scored 40 points. She is the champion. She's an Israeli. She's there. She's also an Orthodox Jew. So after the game was over, which was on Shabbat, she walked home 20 minutes. One of the other girls walked with her so she wouldn't walk alone, because she didn't want to break any of the laws of Shabbat. And she'd gotten permission from her rabbi to play on that day, but not to ride. Her soul is intact. She played for her team, and then she did what was right by her faith. And I want to tell you about Marcel Wanger. Marcel Wanger is a Frenchman who lived during World War II. He was a butcher when the Nazis took over France. And he did a really interesting thing. He happened to have learned mime, and he taught Jewish children how to communicate in mime so they could make a trip to Switzerland to get across the border and wouldn't speak to give their positions away. He had changed his name when the Nazis came to Marcel Marceau. And that's how we know it. But for the children of Limoges, those Jewish children that he saved, he's a hero. That's a soul to emulate. Let me tell you about Mikey O'Donnell. Mikey O'Donnell has Down syndrome. He's only scored one goal at soccer in his whole life. He scored it in the last 10 seconds when the coach put him in a game. And he scored it in the wrong goal. Kicked it in his opponent's goal. He was playing, he's 8 years old, he's playing with 8-year-olds. So, you know, you would think the 8-year-olds might react negatively about that. He kicked it in the wrong goal. And Mikey, he didn't know anything. He went around yelling, I scored, we all win, we all win. And all his teammates rallied around him, these 8-year-olds, and said, way to go, Mikey. And they all chanted, way to go, Mikey. And they lifted him up. Those are kids who get it. Those are kids whose souls are in the right direction that we could emulate. And I want to tell you about Chaim Fogel. Chaim Fogel is the father and grandfather of that Israeli family that was slaughtered in their beds this past year. Mother, father, and children. I want to tell you what he said on Israeli radio about Gilad Shalit, who's been held for 5 years captive as a prisoner of war, incommunicado. Not even the Red Cross has been to him. This is what he said. This is the father and grandfather of these slaughtered kids. If they tell me that in exchange for the release of the 2 murderers of my family, Gilad Shalit will return home, I would agree. He's never met Gilad Shalit. But that man would have these 2 murderers go free to get that one young man back home. That's a soul that's intact. Rosh Hashanah is called Yom Teruah, the day of the blast of the shofar. And we're going to have that in a few minutes, and the kids are going to come in, and we'll see if the bimah is big enough for them. I don't know. I don't care. They'll spill out, they'll be all over. But you know, when you blow out the shofar, it's got this little end, and you blow hard, make the right sound, and out the big end comes a big voice. And that really is a symbol for our souls. Our souls are within us. Our souls, neshama, is linshom, to breathe. And when we use our souls, we can make a big statement. We can do more if we work hard at it, if we believe in it. That wide end symbolizes the world out there. And the Jewish people's soul is intact. You know, there came out a book this year by Stephen Pease. I want to read you just the title. The Golden Age of Jewish Achievement, the compendium of a culture, a people, and their stunning performance. Go out and get that book. Feel good about being a Jew. But I want to tell you something. The book argues something that isn't very popular in today's world. Culture matters, and some cultures are not equal to other cultures. The Jewish culture is superior, he argues, to virtually all other cultures. And let me tell you somebody else who agrees with that. The South Koreans. What? The South Koreans? South Koreans own, in their homes, Korean translations of the Talmud There are more people in Korea that own Korean translations of Talmuds than all the Jews that live in Israel. There are more than 7 million Korean Talmuds being studied in South Korea today. Why? Because the Koreans, who are a pretty smart people and culture themselves, looked around at the world and said, what is the most accomplished intellectual culture in the world? And they had only one answer: the Jewish people. And what is the source of that intellect and culture? The Talmud. The way the Talmud thinks and gets us to think and trains us. How many of us have opened a Talmud or thought about the Talmud recently? The South Koreans are studying it. They could be the next Jewish people. That's a way to get more Jews, I'll tell you. Really great. You know, I told you last night, Beth Sholom is going into its 70th year, and it says in the book of Psalms, the years of our life, the span of a life is 70. That's where that tradition comes from. You know, that when you're 70, you start counting again. Then when you hit 83, you're really 13 again. So you have a second bar mitzvah. All right, so we're 70. We're going to start counting again. This is a time for us to kind of rethink, re-envision, look at it from a different perspective. We're going to try and get a grip on what is the soul of our shul. The soul of the Jewish people is intact. We can answer the question for ourselves whether our souls are intact. But I think we need this year to start looking at the soul of our shul and see what it needs. I'm not sure. I don't know. When I first came here, and Joni and I and our family came here over 25 years ago, I started a little project called the Hineni Project. I met in different people's homes with groups of members, and I asked them about the synagogue. I was listening. Well, we need to listen again, because we need to find a way to understand what the future will be. How do we get a vision for where we should be in the future? Not today. This is beautiful. Our synagogue is wonderful today. But we should never lose a vision for the future. To do that, we need to do it together. You know, when the first tabernacle was built, the Mishkan in the desert, the Jewish people gave so much of their love and their material wealth that there was too much. So what happened to that overflow? According to tradition, God put it aside. And every time Jewish people come together to build the synagogue, a little piece of that love, of that overflow, gets put into it. That's how we've gotten to where we are. But we need to get to where the next generation will be. And that generation, part of it, much of it, is sitting in this room and in the building next to us. We need to listen. And so we are launching this listening project called Shema Yisrael. So what is the listening project? The rabbis and the cantors of your synagogue have made a commitment. We are committed over the next 2 years to meeting face-to-face with every member family of this congregation and having a sit-down to listen to you individually and talk about, hear from you, what you believe your Jewish journey has been and might be taking, what hopes and dreams you have, what ideas you have, what thoughts you have. We intend to meet over this time, here at your home, in our Holy Grounds coffee, having a cup, anywhere you want in your business, but find a way to find the new soul that we have to develop for this synagogue for the future. So why do we call it Shema Yisrael? I don't know if you know the legend of how the Shema was formulated, but this is the legend in the Midrash. Jacob was dying. He had 12 sons. His 12 sons stood around the bed. Jacob was crying because he was worried. Would my children carry on the tradition that I inherited from my father and his father? And he was worried. And they stood around, and remember Jacob's other name? Yisrael. That's right. And they said, Shema Yisrael. Hear, Israel, our father. Adonai Eloheinu. God is our God, too. Not just yours. Adonai Echad. God makes us all one. And according to tradition, Jacob, Israel, said, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Vayed. I now know that our tradition will go le'olam va'ed, forever, because it's now in the next generation. Shema Yisrael was not said to God. It was said to Jews, to each other. Listening to each other is truly what we need to do. To hear our souls, to find out what we dream, and to see what it is that we hope as a synagogue. I would ask you to make a commitment as well, to be honest, to be open, to be willing to meet with us. Don't be afraid. We're not going to ask of you anything that you don't want to give, anything you don't want to say. We just need to find a way to know individually from you. In fact, we put a link on our wonderful new website. You can go right to the website after services, click on that link, go to TBSMB.org, click on the link, and you can sign up to be one of the first to be listened to. That's right. Don't even have to wait for it. Just sign up there. We'll call you first, because it's going to take us a couple of years to get through all this. So, I'm asking you to say Hineni, like I did when I came. Here I am. I'm ready. We're ready to listen. We're ready to talk. You know, when we built this structure, we followed the tradition of every synagogue is supposed to have 3 kinds of light. Not this. This is kind of not, you got to have light, but that's something different. 3 kinds of lights in the synagogue. And by the way, we up here get an incredible view of the light in the back, because I hope when you get up you'll look and see the beauty that is in the back of this synagogue now through the windows that are there. But that's not one of the lights that I was talking about. The first light is this light up here. The Ner Tamid, the eternal light. Every synagogue is supposed to have a Ner Tamid. Our new Ner Tamid is like a number of things, a crown of the Torah. And in fact, if you look back at the lights shining off it, you'll see it's like 3 shins behind it. You see behind it, flying on the wall? That's its shadow. But it's meant to be both a representative of the eternal nature of the Jewish people, of God, of Torah. It's meant to be like rays of light, like out of when Moses got the Torah, his head was shining with rays. And it's supposed to be like sheaves that are gathered between Pesach and Shavuot for offering. So that's one light. The other light is over here. It's our menorah. It's harder to see, but it's actually the original menorah that sat in our other sanctuary all those years. It was reconfigured, and our Judaica team was able to bring it back in a new form so that it reminds us of the light of one person being able to ignite the lights of many, and how one day stands out among the others, Shabbat. But there's another set of lights that are supposed to be in a synagogue. You're supposed to have windows. Every synagogue is supposed to have windows to the world. You're supposed to be able to see the world. And one of the things that always concerned me about our old stained glass windows is you couldn't see through them. They were dark, they were dense. And one of the beautiful things about this, not just the color, but you can see the movement. There's a child walking out there. You can see people out here. You can see the world. What goes on in here is supposed to affect what goes on out there. And what goes on out there is supposed to affect us. We want to listen to each other. We want to understand each other. So check this year to see if your soul is intact. And if not, maybe do something about it. It's a good challenge for the year. Read a good book about the Jewish people and feel good. Pease book, the EASC, it's a good start. There are others. Feel good, because I believe our soul as a people is intact. And help us find the new soul, the growing soul of the shul, that we might prepare for the next generation. Shema Yisrael, hear Israel, our people. Shana Tova Metuka, a good and healthy year in 5772.